Prey is a reboot of a soft reboot sequel, which, right off the bat, is confusing. Pair that with a disastrous console launch and an advertising campaign that didn't even seem to know what the game was actually like, and a month and a half after release, people already seem to have forgotten about Prey. I'm here today to give the game its due with a proper critiquing, which to translate means I'm going to nitpick the shit out of this game like the vulture I am, so strap in. This video is going to be a bit more freewheeling than some of the others. I'm just going to bounce from topic to topic because I have so much to talk about with this game. Let's jump right into the discussion with the most important part of any video game.
Gameplay.
The gameplay of Prey is actually going to be a little hard to talk about, seeing as how everything in this game is such a mixed bag. For instance, let's start with the simplest possible description of Prey. What kind of game is it? Well, it was advertised as an action game. Look at these explosions, you got shotgun blasts. Okay, this is definitely an action game. But wait, there's really only 3 offensive weapons. And if you play Prey for more than 15 minutes, you'll come to the stark realization that Morgan Yu is basically made out of paper mache. You are not Doom Guy in this game. Going balls first into a situation is rarely a good choice here, and rarely a fun one, seeing as how limited the selection of weapons and truly interesting tactics is. Yeah, sure, I could throw boxes at these motherfuckers if I wanted to, but I'm not gonna sit here for 45 seconds while Morgan stretches his hammies so he can lift this shit while I'm in the middle of a fierce battle with an alien horde. It's not fucking convenient. So does that mean Prey's a stealth game? Arkane's last 2 games were stealth, it would make sense, right? Nope, the stealth sucks. Good luck sneaking around lightning fast amorphous enemies with no fucking faces, because it doesn't work. Even the one power whose use I assumed was mostly for stealth is completely non-functional for stealth. Alright, I guess that just leaves horror. I mean, there is a whole D-pad button dedicated specifically to a flashlight that, by the way, I did not once need or use to any real effectiveness. The flashlight is a horror staple, and I guess if you have a phobia of oily spaghetti, this game could be interpreted as pretty spooky. Awful bright to be a horror game, but like some of the greats of the genre, it does rely on the slow exploration of an isolating environment. So I ask you once more, what kind of game is Prey? That was the question. I don't know. I don't have an answer. 3 options: action, stealth, or horror. You have 2 seconds until the bomb goes off. The real answer here is that Prey is all of those things and none of them. If Prey was a child, its answer to what do I want to be when I grow up would be an astronaut, a big game hunter, a world-renowned sous chef, and a housewife named Susan. You can't be all of those things, Prey. You're gonna suck at all of them. Susan doesn't have time for her children when she's out sniping wild dogs in the savannah. What am I talking about? This jack-of-all-trades act that Prey tries to pull is a point that you'll see me bringing up a bunch in this video, because I believe it's one of the biggest problems with the game. Not the biggest. I was saving that for later. Prey is a game packed with an ocean of mechanics, from hacking, to shooting, to crafting, to moral decision-making, to laying down alien-powered super traps. But when you really get into it, you realize that all of that is nearly as deep as a puddle. Some of my favorite moments with the Dishonored franchise were those times when I messed with the AI and got crazy reactions like an impromptu gang war or some shit. Only a sliver of that engaging reactivity remains in Prey, mostly because the Typhon's only purpose, and therefore their only behavior, is to teleport all up on your shit and smack you to death. When they're not being fucking idiots, of course. You're not gonna be tricking these guys or playing games with them. Like 90% of the time, it is straight fight or flight. You either kill them or you go around them and do nothing. Which is weird, because that really doesn't line up with the mantra of Arkane Studios. Arkane's design philosophy is play your way, which essentially means they build their games to be played in a variety of different styles. So when Play Your Way popped up at the beginning of Prey, I got hyped, because I love the reactivity and freedom of Dishonored. But there should have been an asterisk by that statement this go around, because this time it's technically Play Prey's way, or get fucked. Play the way Prey wants you to play and you'll be okay, but honestly you don't have much say in the matter. I personally love to murder things, so I went through Prey trying to blast a path of hot lead through Talos-I, and didn't really work out for me. Prey absolutely requires you to go into every situation strapped to the fucking gills with all the medkits, lasers, bullets, explosives, and psi-hypos you can possibly fit inside your mescaline trip-looking ass inventory, or you are likely to fail. I'm not innately against hard games. Bloodborne is my favorite game of all time, but the base difficulty of Prey does not accommodate for all playstyles. You cannot wing it around this ship. All it takes is for you to put your guard down for 1 second and the flying spaghetti monster has got your ass. And and good luck defending your tight butt against those moist strands, because the combat of this game is not gonna help you out of that situation. The gunplay of Prey is... it's there. It's just there. I think it's the lack of iron sights that really messes with me. This game literally uses, like, Time Splitters 2, zoom in with your eyes tech. There's a reason we phased this shit out, guys. Plus, for the last 3/4 of the game, they slapped this fat-ass animation in front of your face that basically requires a loading screen every time you want to zoom in, which is a huge disadvantage when you're fighting an army of aliens that all move 600 times faster than you. It seems like maybe they were going for a retro vibe with the zoom, like an early 2000s game. But why would you do that? The only purpose it serves is to make the combat clunkier than it already is. Another integral and equally clunky part of combat, as well as the game in general, are the crazy alien superpowers that you eventually find yourself wielding. Just gonna say right off the bat that these powers are not as interesting or dynamic as any of the Dishonored powers. Arcane seems to have gone the Bioshock Infinite route of making a bunch of the offensive powers, like, mines that you lay down? No, don't do that shit. Plus, they're inherently unsatisfactory due to the lack of hand animations. I know this shit is a very specific nitpick, but in the Dishonored games, the protagonist's hand shakes violently as they're readying an ability. It's like she can barely hold the void back. Look at that shit. And then you get a full release. The way the powers are presented visually is important, and in Prey, they're not presented at all. You press the button, the screen goes all and then something happens, and it just feels lame. The only power that does feel genuinely satisfying to use is Mimic, and that's the first one you get! Side note, I think it's the only one that actually has an arm animation when you use it. It's kinda sad, but Prey peaked the first time I snuck through a window by becoming a phone. I will say though, despite the fact that you can only use it for a few seconds at a time, Mimic is a pretty creative and fun to use power, and it really takes advantage of the deep interactivity of Talos-I. Faint praise, I guess, but praise nonetheless. Speaking of the scary spaceship, let's talk about my favorite part of the game, Talos-I itself.
Talos-I and the content therein.
Hypothetically speaking, if Prey didn't have a single alien or gun in the game, I think I might have loved it, because Prey takes place in one of the most immersive, densely packed game environments I've had the pleasure of exploring in recent memory. Talos-I is where this game really shines. It's a massive and engaging location that really taps into that trapped in space feel. Talos-I, or Isolat, if you spell it backwards, ho-ho, is a great game environment for many reasons, chief among those being the immaculate level design and the sheer amount of content stuffed aboard. Sure, not all the content is quality stuff. I don't want to stare at Walton Goggins' lifeless eye sockets any more than I have to, but there's some great little tidbits of lore and surprising humor scattered around Talos-I. I actually really enjoyed that. The subtle humor that weaved throughout the game, like the joke that nobody knows what the fuck the Reployer even does, was a big motivator in discovering and actually reading the information that the game laid out for me to find. And it's not just notes you'll find lying around Talos. The ship is packed to the brim with environmental storytelling, alternate and hidden paths, upgrades to your assault of alien arsenal, and much more, which if you enjoyed the game will undoubtedly keep you coming back for multiple playthroughs. Plus you can also pick, like, everything up, which is a little detail, but I feel like games have been working towards fully interactive environments like that for a while now, so it's worth noting. Going back to what I was just talking about though, the one thing that Prey really lacks in terms of things you can physically find aboard Talos are weapons. There are 3 weapons in this game that can be used to directly deal damage to all enemy types. I gathered up every weapon Prey had to offer about 5 hours into my 25-hour playthrough, and I can tell you through personal experience that the glue gun is great, but it's not gonna hold your attention for 20 fucking hours. By hour 20, all I wanted was a reliable piece of popcorn to stand on. Oh my god. Oh god damn it! Interesting side note, if you played the game, I'm sure you noticed these weird little discs lying around everywhere. This is actually a leftover asset that would have been collectible ammo for a cut disc shooting weapon. The developers apparently talked about this weapon in an interview before release, saying that the weapon would have had a voice and said shit like homing, locking on, shit like that. But eventually, over time, the gun would start to, like, question its own existence? Why the fuck wasn't that in the game? An existential frisbee launcher that you can load like a record player? That sounds like it would have been my favorite thing in the whole fucking game. I bet that would have made quick work of some goddamn cystoids. Oh, while we're on the topic of the Typhon, we need to talk about the Typhon. They're fucking annoying, guys. In my opinion, the Typhon overall are pretty uninteresting, from their behavior to their simplistic visual design. Okay, first off, the mimics, honestly, are great. I really enjoy the mimics, and my first encounter with a poltergeist was genuinely frightening. I had no idea what the fuck was happening. At their best, the Typhon are shocking and confusing, but for the most part, you just get your standard game enemy types like Blobby Man Alien, Flaming Blobby Man Alien, Electric Blobby Man Alien, a rock with an eye, and a floating package of ramen noodles, which happens to shoot out groups of what I believe might be the worst fucking thing in the history of video games. The cystoids, guys. The fucking cystoids! I can hardly think of a single enemy that I hate dealing with more than the cystoids. And like any child of the 90s, I have faced down an army of Zubats. It might be okay if they individually didn't do as much damage as a fucking bowling ball hurl at your fucking chest, but that combined with the fact that you have to face off against them in their home turf of space most of the time were the straws that broke the camel's back. We didn't talk about space back in gameplay when we should have, so I'm gonna talk about it now because we have to. First off, I just gotta say that going into space in Prey is awesome. Very few games properly capture zero gravity, but Prey nails that feeling of chugging through space. The first time I floated into the blackness outside of Talos-I, I swear, I got chills up my dick. The dick chills immediately dissipated when I realized that I was going to have to fight enemies in space, being silently assaulted from 360 degrees around me while moving at a leisurely pace of 1 meter a second. After the first 30 minutes of that, I just wanted to die. The last half of Prey includes a bunch of segments in which you face off against enemies in zero gravity, and it never stops feeling terrible.
Technical issues.
Alright. This is where I might get a little mad. I'm gonna try to use my inside voice, but I really don't know how much I'm gonna be able to contain myself. Okay. Sorry about that. As I was going to say, the technical... I have never played a game that has launched with the oh my fucking god! Not once in my life have I ever paid full price for a game that crashed 20 plus times in the first week. I got 15 hours into Prey. I got 15 hours! 15 hours! Prey. And then I got to this part with the turrets and the big door and bam, the game wouldn't even load. I do not use this phrase lightly because the internet has straight up soiled it! Soiled it! But I'm telling you guys, this shit was literally unplayable. I had to wait 2 fucking weeks to play a game that I already paid for. I'm sorry, but that is fucking unacceptable, especially after the shit-ass launch of Dishonored 2 on PC. This is 2 huge fuck-ups in a row. I remember people were jumping down IGN's throat for giving the game 4 out of 10 when it came out, but in the first 2 weeks, shit, I wouldn't even give it a 4. It wasn't a working game. 15 hours. Eventually, I got it to work with like a save 2 hours back, and then I played through it again, and oh, nope, still crashing. Fuck everything! Another technical nitpick, yeah, big surprise, more nitpicks. Why is there a loading screen after the loading screen? These 45-second load times weren't enough, you had to keep loading? But that wasn't even the full extent of the technical issues in Prey. There's a pretty important mechanic introduced about 5 hours in when you start using the Typhon neuromods. So this mechanic, this creature, is called the Nightmare. After you've injected a few Typhon neuromods at random intervals, a giant being made of pure black death will hunt you through the halls of Talos-I. That sounds great, right? The hunted becomes even more hunted. Fortunately enough, during my first encounter with the Nightmare, I discovered its weakness. Rooms. This fucker cannot get into 90% of the spaces aboard this ship. So every time the Nightmare began hunting me, I just walked into any fucking room and enjoyed the scenery for 3 whole minutes. Awesome idea. Really bad implementation. We need to move on though, or I'm going to explode.
In conclusion.
Oh, wow, we got here fast. Over the past few minutes, I have talked about a whole bunch of different shit. So I'm just gonna sum up all of my thoughts on Prey with a brief pros and cons list. Pros. A great environment with vistas, and more vistas. Superb level design. A few cool weapons and powers. It rewards ingenuity and heavy planning, if you're into that shit. At least the voice acting isn't Dishonored 2. Cons. It didn't fucking function. I guess they fixed it. You're never forgiven though. I will never forgive you. Load times galore. A bunch of lame weapons and powers. Jack of all trades, master of none. Get this goddamn ugly ass cycloscope out of my face! Annoying enemies, the non-functioning Nightmare, the Notmare. So there you have it. A nice and clean summary of the best and worst of Spaghetti Space Warrior. Prey is a game with mountains of potential. I truly believe that if Arcane Austin continues to iterate and improve on the formula they established with this first game, Prey 2 could be fucking phenomenal. But as of now, The game's pretty meh. Meh out of 10.